Welcome to the Vegan Gym Live, where plant power meets cutting edge science and innovation. I am Dr. Daphne Bascom, your host for today, and I am coming to you from a hospital bed, the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. And I wanted to start by giving a shout out to all of the amazing healthcare providers that have been helping me on my recovery. Whether you're tuning in for the first time or you are coming back to hear more about being plant powered and how to power your fitness journey, we're excited that you're on this journey with us. Our goal is to provide you with the latest and most effective information how to optimize your health and fitness as a vibrant, healthy vegan. Today, we're going to be having a discussion on how to reduce the feeling of being overwhelmed in your fitness journey. And joining us is one of our amazing coaches in the Vegan Superhero Academy, Coach Tiana Braden. Tiana, welcome to the Vegan Gym Live.
Thank you so much, Daphne. I'm very excited to be here and very excited for this conversation. I think it's an important one.
I do too. And Tiana, this is your first time on the Vegan Gym Live, so would you mind sharing a little bit about yourself with the community, why you became vegan, a little bit about your own health and wellness journey?
Absolutely, yeah. So I have been vegan for about 12 years now. I went vegan mainly for animals at first. I think just like growing up, it never really made sense to me. But my parents were like, no, you need meat to survive. You need meat to get nutrients and milk to have strong bones, and all of the all of the cliches and myths that we hear out there. But for me, it just never made sense. Like, okay, I'm playing with my dog, but then all of these other amazing animals are being killed for food.
Mm-hmm.
And so once I was able to make my own nutritional choices and feed myself, it was just a really easy decision. And it was more about just figuring out the logistics of how to transition to a vegan diet. And I would say it was like a gradual transition and took some trial and error. But after a few months, I was able to successfully transition into a full vegan diet. And then it became through the process about everything else, health, environment. Just, I think that's the best part about the vegan lifestyle is that really it's the best lifestyle for all of those components.
Agreed.
It just feels very empowering to know that you're doing great when it comes to just the environment and animal welfare, but you're also doing the best thing when it comes to your health. So for me, it's like definitely the biggest part of my identity is a vegan diet and just spreading this message. I would say that's my biggest passion in life. And then my second biggest passion is coaching. And so finding the vegan gym was a perfect way for me to merge both of those passions together and help other vegans discover their true powers, crush their limiting beliefs, achieve their health and fitness goals. From personal experience, I know how much power there is in getting through the other side and proving to yourself what you're capable of. I have struggled a lot with a lot of different eating disorders through my life, and it's been very, up and down when it comes to my relationship with food, when it comes to my body image. So it took a lot of work to get to where I am today when it comes to my relationship with food, when it comes to my self-care. Big part of it was discovering strength training and really falling in love with just building my body and feeling strong and feeling capable and using food to help me fuel those physical goals that I have, rather than just viewing food as the number of calories and always just trying to shrink myself to the tiniest version of myself. And it wasn't it sounds easier said than that. It wasn't that simple. It wasn't an overnight switch. But I think over that time, I really started to fall in love with finally learning how to treat my body right. And that is ultimately what inspired me to be a coach and to help other people do the same. I 180'd my career. I actually have a degree in computer science, which I haven't used much since then. I was like, no, this just makes sense. Sometimes you just kind of get pulled in life and you discover your calling even after you already decided on something else. So it just kind of made sense. Everything aligned, and I coached in person. I coached at like different companies online, and I just have to say there is literally no place like the vegan gym. It's like a completely different level of coaching, of support, of community, and it feels amazing to be a coach in this place, but also it's so empowering to know that there's the entire community of people who believe in the same message, who live the same lifestyle. It feels so freeing to not have to explain yourself or why you don't eat meat or, where you get your protein. I think a lot of us are just feel very lonely on our vegan journeys or on our, fitness journeys, and just to have this empowering and supportive community, both from just a coaching perspective, but also from being a part of that as a member, it's just so empowering, and it really just paints our purpose and our mission as a team, and I'm so honored to be a part of it.
And we are so excited that you're here. So thank you for that amazing introduction. And you've been on a journey, which I think provides you with a great perspective on the topic that we want to share with the community today, which is how to reduce overwhelm, because it's very easy to try and do everything at one time, and you want to fix everything. But based on your experience, how can someone identify their top priorities when starting a fitness journey, especially if they feel overwhelmed by all the information out there? Because if you go on social media, Tiana, you can find good information, not so good information, and it can be very overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's such a good point, because I think stepping into this journey, it feels like a lot. There's so many opinions, there's so many advice, so many tips out there. It's so easy to get lost. It's so easy to not know what to follow or
Mhm.
who is right and who is wrong. And you are just being pulled in all of these different directions. And there's also marketing, and people try to sell you things. So it's so easy to just, I don't even want to say fall for that, because if you are not sure what you're looking for and what you need to do, it's, you need help and you need advice, and it's so easy to follow something like that. And then you're like, you see something else, and then you're like, oh well, am I doing the right thing? Should I try this later? It just becomes very overwhelming. And so I think the first step is just identifying what you want to achieve, right? So identifying your goals, being clear with what your main goal is. I think a lot of the time we kind of want to do everything all at once to the max. So we want to be like the leanest we have ever been. We want to run a
Right.
marathon or do a CrossFit competition. We also want to fix our hormones, fix our relationship with food, and like want to do everything tomorrow. And I get that. But I think it's important to prioritize that and create, okay, what is your first goal, and use that as your anchor. And then all of those other things, we can kind of work on them and have them fit into the picture of that. But there is an order and the priority of the goals that you have created for yourself. So I would say the first part is determining what is the main goal. Is it to lose weight? Is it to gain strength? Is it
Mhm.
to improve your endurance or to run a marathon, or whatever it is, name it, write it down, and then
Mhm.
let's kind of chunk that down so we have a general outline of what we need to follow. With that being said, that doesn't mean that if you do have multiple goals, it doesn't mean that you can get to all of those goals and improve all of that. It just means that, okay, maybe this is the season where we're focusing a little bit more on weight loss. And then after this season, we're focusing on muscle gain, or
Right.
whatever else you want to achieve. But I think it's really important to identify that order so that you're not feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm doing everything and I'm doing nothing at the same
Exactly.
time. Um, so that would be the first step, identifying that order of priorities. And then I think digging deeper into why that is important to you, asking yourself, what is the main purpose? What is the main motivator for this? Because I think if your goal is only, like, let's say we're talking about weight loss, and you say that your why is to look good in a bikini, I feel like that's not going to be a good enough motivation to push you through more challenging moment and more challenging days, which we're all human and we all
Right.
have. So I think diving deeper into what is the actual reason why you're doing this. Is it to feel better about yourself? Is it to be able to play with your kids, to live until you're 120, right? Diving a little bit deeper into that big why and zooming out rather than just looking at the numbers or the number on the scale or the size of your jeans or bikini or whatever. I think it's important to dig a little bit deeper and identify what that is for you, because it's easier than to use that as a motivator to move forward.
100% agree. And, I think that overwhelm sometimes can come from wanting to do everything at one time,
Mm-hmm.
which is, but to your point, it's important to reassess your priorities because they may change. So, why do you think, and how do you talk to your athletes around regularly reassessing their priorities so that one, they're making sure they're aligned with their why, because the why is important, but also so that they can see the progress they're making?
Yeah, I love this question, because I think this is actually one of the most interesting part to me about being a coach and seeing this transformation in people, is how often the goals change and priorities change. And I think at the beginning, it's a little bit easier to just have that narrow vision of like, no, this is my only goal and this is the only thing that matters. And then through the process, we discovered that, yeah, maybe the scale is a part of it, but maybe that's not your primary goal anymore. And maybe that's just kind of like a cherry on top, and you have
Hmm.
other amazing things that you want to work on. Your goals are going to evolve just as you are going to evolve as a human being through that process. And what mattered at the beginning might not be as important 6 months from now or a year down the line. So I think regularly checking in with yourself and reassessing what the priorities are is important. So again, maybe you started out by wanting to lose weight, and maybe you set the goal to lose 20 pounds, but you discover after losing 10 pounds that, no, I feel actually amazing where I'm at. And I now want to shift my focus more into maintaining my weight while building muscle, getting
Hmm.
stronger, running a race, or, whatever other priorities you had on that list that you have created for yourself. So I think your priorities should reflect that present moment, not reflect where you were when you began your journey, right? So it
Exactly.
helps you really not be stuck in a rut and not feel like you're just doing the same routine just out of the habit based on the goals that you created long time ago that might not matter to you anymore.
Absolutely. And that periodic reassessment should be whether you're working with a coach, which is awesome, or whether you're planning your fitness journey on your own. You do need to take those, whether it's quarterly, but opportunities to reflect on what are you doing, why are you doing it, and how is that helping you meet your goal.
Mm-hmm.
And Tiana, you mentioned one other thing earlier, and I wanted to go back and just talk about that a little bit because unrealistic expectations can sometimes either hinder progress or just have people give up.
Mm-hmm.
And the unrealistic expectations can be I want to lose 20 pounds and I want to gain 5 pounds of muscle and I want to run a marathon, as you said, all at the same time. So I'm trying to work toward all of that at once.
Mm-hmm.
What, how do you advise? I mean, having big, hairy, audacious goals is great, but how do you help people set realistic expectations around how much progress they can make in a defined period of time, or creating goals that are achievable? So making sure they're smart goals, but not so unrealistic that you feel defeated.
Yeah, and I have to admit, I'm definitely very guilty of this in my own journey. Just, setting very unrealistic expectations and thinking like, well, I'm a failure if I don't achieve this because this should be doable, right? And I think those unrealistic expectations are kind of like quicksand. They pull
Mhm.
you down very, very fast if you're not careful around it. And when we set those goals that are out of our reach, we are setting ourselves for failure and disappointment, because that's when that like self-doubt and frustration ultimately kicks in when you're not able to achieve that. And that's what oftentimes leads to quitting. And I always tell my clients, the only way to really fail this is to quit and is to stop trying.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
you can set different goals. You can reassess your progress. You can change that GPS, right? It's like calibrating your GPS. Like you can change the direction, but as long as you keep going and as long as you keep moving, that's the only way to get to your goals, right? You can allow yourself to get to that point where everything is so overwhelming and you have set the goals that are way, way, way out of your reach, because that's ultimately going to lead to that feeling of like, well, I can't achieve this, so why even try? It leads to that like all or nothing mindset.
Mhm.
I like to use, like, I like to imagine a triangle, and in one corner of the triangle, it's the aesthetic goals, right? It's like losing weight or looking good in a bikini or whatever it is that you're using as your anchor. It's more of that like look oriented goals in one corner of that triangle. In another one, it's more of like a performance oriented goal. Let's say you have a competition that you're preparing to, a race that you want to run. You want to really improve your performance and your fitness. And then in the top corner is more health oriented goals. So this can be
Mhm.
everything: improving your hormones, your gut health, your relationship with food, your mindset. It's more like those holistic type of goals. And we want to focus on all of those, right? But we can't be in every single corner of the triangle at all times. So I think it's identifying like, okay, what do I want to focus on the most right now? And you can be somewhere in the middle, right? But then you do have to just acknowledge that, you know, you can do every single goal to the max and just,
Right.
be the leanest that you have ever been and do a powerlifting competition and also has the best, like have the best hormonal profile and the healthiest relationship with food. Like it's just impossible to be like in the every single corner of that triangle, right? So again, going back to identifying that order of the goals, and then once you have done that, okay, how do we chunk this down? How do we make this achievable? I think it's important to focus on more of process oriented goals rather than just the outcome oriented goals. So instead of saying like,
Mhm.
I want to lose 30 pounds, what do I need to achieve to lose those 30 pounds? What habits do I need to set in place to be able to do that? Because ultimately, I mean, we can't control the scale. We're doing the habits and doing those actions that are going to help the scale go down, but you can't control the number on the scale. You can control your actions. So I think setting more of those process oriented goals and setting habits in place that are going to help you get there and chunking it down is a way to avoid that quicksand of, unrealistic expectations pulling you down.
And though that is good advice. Completely agree. And as you're so going back to the unrealistic expectations, and sometimes that, and I think many of us have it, that perfectionistic tendency where it can become very all or none. So if I can't do it perfectly, I'm just not going to do it.
Mhm.
But knowing that that's not possible, what are some tips you have for maintaining motivation to stick to a routine, even on the days that are really hard? Because there's progress is not linear. And if anyone thinks it is, I can tell you it is not. It is
Mhm.
definitely like going through the Swiss Alps. Um, you have your good days and you have your low days. But how do you encourage people to maintain motivation and to be as consistent as possible, which is key to meeting their goals?
Yeah, and I think this sounds a little bit harsh sometimes, but I think we gotta put motivation aside. Like it can't be the only thing that's keeping you going.
Mhm.
Because like you said, it's just you are going to have a tough day. You are human. And I find this a lot of times, when people start their fitness journey or when they sign up for a program, you're very excited, you're very motivated to reach your goals, and you're doing something new, and you're investing in yourself both from the time and from the financial perspective. And so you are very motivated to do all of the things that coach tells you to do, or to do all of the things that are healthy for you. But it's impossible to keep that level of motivation
Right.
at that
Correct.
highest level
Yeah.
for x amount of months. So you're going to have a day when you're just not feeling it, or you're going to have a tough situation at work, or you're a great example at the hospital, super motivated, right? But here you are. So I think yeah, it's impossible to rely on that. So I use that motivation more like, okay, when you're feeling that way, when you're feeling inspired, when you're feeling motivated, let's take advantage of that to really set the habits and routines in place that are going to carry you through, even though even on those days when you're not feeling it. I think brushing your teeth example is a really good one because we don't really think about doing that. I mean, I
No.
don't know what was the last time that I was like consciously thinking about like, oh, I gotta like it's just something that you do daily, right? It's not the most fun thing in the world, but we just do it because we know it's healthy for us. And so I think getting your habits to that point where like it just feels a part of your day. It just feels like it's what you do, right? Even when you don't feel like it, you just do it
Uh-huh.
because you know it serves you. I think that's the ultimate goal. And that takes time. You're not going to get there in 2 weeks and you're going to have ups and downs. But I really think that's necessary in order to be able to keep this going long term and not just do it when you're motivated, because it is like a roller coaster. It's like sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. And if you're only doing things when I mean, think about it with anything else in your life. If like just going back to school, if you're only doing your schoolwork when you're feeling super excited and motivated to get it done, you probably won't graduate. So like the same thing with fitness and health. It's yeah, not every single day you're going to feel like, eating healthy meals or tracking your meals in chronometer or showing up for your workout, but doing it even when you're not feeling it is the key. And then I think also having a non-negotiable plan in mind is important. So like for me, my non-negotiable is I'm going to get at least 8,000 steps and I'm going to
Mhm.
drink my water and get a serving of vegetables. And so those are not big goals. I try to do more than that every
Right.
single day, right? But on the days that are tougher, I know that I at least have those non-negotiables that I can lean back onto. And it doesn't feel like, well, the day is wasted, or like, no,
Yeah.
that was my plan. Like I know that I'm going to have those days, and these are the things that I'm going to be trying on those days that are harder to follow everything else. I know that I have at least my list of things that are going to help me.
And that can be very and I mean, it can be helpful to have those non-negotiables, and I think we all should, and it's not compromising. It's
Mm.
having a foundation set of, "I this is who I am, and this is always what I'm going to do." Um, so you don't always have to achieve everything. If you're not feeling it that day, that's okay, but if you have those non-negotiables, then at least you'll get your steps, you'll get your water, you'll get your vegetable,
Mm.
or 2 or 3.
Yep.
And so, along with that, what do you think? So, I'm big on social support, which is why I love this community. And I think accountability partners can play a significant role in helping reduce the overwhelm. What are your thoughts on accountability partners, and how can, if someone doesn't have one, how can they seek one out? And if someone does have one, how they may play a role in reducing overwhelm?
hmm I think that accountability is a game changer. And I feel like right now, I'm reflecting back and I'm working on some things. And it's like, I used to be so stubborn and not ask for help and just, I can do this on my own. I can figure it out. And you can, like all of us are capable of achieving our goals and figuring it out on our own and like managing it all by ourselves. But you don't have to do that. And it's a lot
Right.
more challenging and more overwhelming to do that. I think that accountability just adds that extra layer of commitment because it's not just about you anymore. You've got someone in your corner who is there to help
Mhm.
you, to support you. And we are talking from the coach's perspective, someone who can help create an outline for you with the steps that you need to follow to get from point A to point B and reduce some of that overwhelm. I always tell my clients instead of like Googling stuff, I do want you to do your research and explore things that you want to explore, but also use me as that guidance, use me as
Right.
the GPS to help you get from point A to point B, because you don't have to do this on your own anymore. We have done it with so many people before. We have been through it. And so I think having someone who has already been through it, who can help you on your own way to get to your goals, is just a lot less stressful and a lot more enjoyable. And I think when things are more enjoyable, it's just easier to follow through, and it's easier to push when even when you don't have that motivation. So I'm big on accountability. If you are able to get a coach, it's the really one of the best investments that you can make in your health. But I think even just from like on a lower perspective, if you're, get a friend who is also interested in improving their lifestyle and, can help you stick to your habits, or can show up to a workout with you and can hold you accountable on those mornings that you don't feel like showing up, if you know that someone is waiting for you and counting on you to show up and do a workout together, you're more likely to show up as well. So I think looking from as many different sources of support and community, and partnerships on this process and on this journey, the more of those connections you have, the easier this becomes to follow through.
I completely agree. And we had a comment from someone in our community talking about how VSA is the best accountability setup ever. So Tiana, as we wrap up today, what does having the right mindset, what is the impact of having the right mindset have on your ability to reduce overwhelm?
That's a great question. I think a lot of people just think about reaching their goals, losing weight, as, oh, this is just about following a workout plan and sticking to a meal plan, or sticking to a set of macros. And those are the tools that we use, but the biggest part of this is how you approach this from the mindset perspective, and how open you are to learning and growing, and yeah, sometimes failing and having obstacles, but not letting those obstacles hold you back, not focusing on perfection all the time, but being able to navigate those ups and downs, right? It's one thing to be able to stick to a workout plan and stick to a meal plan, but having a mindset that's strong enough to navigate through more of those challenging
Mhm.
times, and to really allow you to keep up with all of that, even when the situation or circumstances are not perfect. I mean, like, you're figuring out how to move even from, and get your movement even from a hospital bed, right? I think that's such a great example of, yeah, situations and circumstances are going to suck sometimes, but there's always stuff that we can do and figure it out. And I think mindset is the biggest part of that, having that growth mindset of, let me learn from this, let me see how I can grow, how I can improve,
Mhm.
how I can approach the situation better, what is in my control and versus what it's not. So let me not stress about things that I have zero control over, and let me focus on things that I do have control over. That's the key, because without that piece, yeah, physical transformation is great, but it's not going to last, and likely you're not going to get there without that piece anyway. So I do think that, again, another reason why I love this program is it's not just the workouts and the nutrition. We really do pay a big focus on that aspect as well.
And we talk about it all the time, controlling the controllables. That's
Mhm.
all you can do. Um, so, Tiana, this has been an amazing conversation. And I know that we've only touched on a lot of the high level aspects of how to reduce overwhelm in your fitness journey. Is there any final message that you wanted to share with the community about something you think is important in terms of a takeaway that we didn't touch on today?
Yeah, I would just like to go back to, I know that this journey, whatever your goal is, we touched on a few different goals that you can have through this process, but whatever that goal is for you, it can feel very lonely sometimes. It can feel like you're the only person dealing with certain obstacles, or that everyone else is ahead of you, or everyone else has it figured out. That is not the case. If this was easy, I think you always say, like, if this was easy, none of us would have a job. And that is so true. And even us coaches who do this professionally, we all have our own struggles, and we all go through all of that. So just know that you're not alone with that. Whatever you're facing on your health and fitness journey right now, there is someone who has been through it. There is someone who can help, and you can reach out for help, and you can have that community and that support through that process. And there's no shame in asking for help and asking for support, even if you feel like, I know everything, I can do this on my own. Again,
Mhm.
going back to myself, that's what I used to do. It's okay to ask for help.
Even coaches need coaches. Yes. And there's no asking for help in some ways is the hardest and yet the easiest thing to do.
Mhm.
Tiana, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been a great conversation, and I look forward to having you back on the Vegan Gym Live. I also want to thank all of you for joining us today, and we can't wait to connect with you again next week. I do want to remind you to save the date for a special Vegan Gym Live on September 25th at 6:30 p.m. We are going to have the amazing Chef AJ joining us. And Chef AJ is going to be sharing some thoughts on her newest book called Sweet Indulgence, Guilt-Free Treats Sweetened with Naturally with Fruit. And if we're lucky, maybe Chef AJ will actually do a live cooking demo for us during that event. So, Tiana, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was an amazing conversation.
You're welcome. And until next week, superheroes, be well, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.